I don't know what to do. It feels as if everything I hold dear is crumbling beneath me. Around a year ago, my husband anxiously sat me down and told me that he has discovered he had a long-lost daughter and that she wanted to meet him. According to him, he had an ex he got pregnant as a teenager, but she had moved away before she started showing and without telling him. She gave birth and kept his daughter a secret from him. Eventually, she put Kat up for adoption. Kat had now tracked him down and wanted to get to know him. As I'm unable to conceive on my own, I was very enthusiastic and encouraging of them meeting. I thought we would be a nice little family, though she lived out of state and we would only see her infrequently. He was nervous about it, but they met and seemed to establish a good relationship almost immediately. I'll admit, before her first visit, I wanted to snoop around on her Facebook, Twitter, etc., but he told me he had already tried and she just didn't seem into social media. At one point, well, several, I asked about DNA testing or speaking to the mother/adoptive parents. He told me all of that would come in due time, but based on the details she had shared with him, he was 90% sure she was his biological daughter. He showed me some pictures she had sent him, and they indeed very, very closely resemble one another. Their first few visits together were private, but eventually we had a big dinner for her at my house. She could be a little immature and inappropriate. She brought up politics, and religion within the first hour, but she was charming. My husband has seen Kat numerous times since then, both with and without me present. A week ago, a young man I've never met friend requested me, then sent me a Facebook link. It was Kat, but it wasn't. Her screen name wasn't Kat or Catherine, but something else completely. I was only able to give it a glance before he sent another message. It was Kat's ex-boyfriend, and he wanted me to know that this was the woman my husband had been sleeping with. I immediately ceased contact with him and assumed he must have misunderstood Kat's relationship to my husband somehow, that Kat may use an alias for Facebook. But looking at her account, I started noticing other discrepancies, personal details that were similar to but unlike Kat's. That Facebook account ate at me for a couple of days before I asked my husband if he knew what any of this was about. He immediately started crying. There had been an incident where he'd been in the shower or something, and for whatever reason, he suspected I had gone through his texts. He had deleted most of them prior to leaving the phone unattended, but she had since texted him a couple of times, in character. Which is how he segued into telling me that they were in a fake, incestuous daddy-daughter relationship. I felt sick. To be honest, I actually vomited once the arguing was over. He said that, at the time, he had just come up with the long-lost daughter ruse as a panicked, impulsive excuse. When I was excited and encouraging of the situation, the two of them decided to take advantage of that opportunity. He told me that he loved me, but not in any romantic or way, that he married me out of fear of never being able to do better. He kept saying, "You're such an amazing person," that he had considered leaving well before he met her, but he had always been afraid I may hurt myself or start drinking again. I left and have not returned to our home since. My best friend is the only one who has any idea of what is happening. How do I tell my family? We're not particularly close, but a small few of them have actually met her. How do I tell anyone what happened? My husband's parents are both deceased, but he has a brother and nephew who will surely wonder what is up with their niece cousin, unless they know the truth already. Do his friends and co-workers know? Or has he lied to them too? He actually does not have a Facebook account, though I now know he uses a site for this sick stuff. But I've posted about Kat on numerous occasions. Did no one look into it or ask him? I know I personally fielded a lot of questions. We have a lot of mutual acquaintances, and I feel as if he just played the cruelest joke on me imaginable. The marriage is beyond saving, and there will be the normal burdens that come with that, I know. 8 years of my life wasted. The financial and practical and even heartsick issues I could potentially deal with. But what do I do about the humiliation? What do I do if my ex-husband dates or even marries his daughter? Who do I publicly accept as my own once we are through? How do I find out who knew and who didn't? Should I move away? Start all over somewhere else and try to make different friends? It has taken me a while to finish this, but I honestly cannot even begin to explain how embarrassed of everything I am. It hurts more than I ever thought this could. When I was 13, it became known that my dad cheated on my mom and I was the result. My older brother and sister were my dad's, but I wasn't. My parents went through an adjusting period and decided to work things out, and my father didn't want me around anymore. That was his condition to forgive my mom. My mom, being the SAHM that she was all her life, I think she just saw no way out but to accept. They decided to send me to boarding school. At that time, my grandmother, Mom's mom, agreed to take me in instead, so I went to live with her. My brother and sister never visited me or talked to me after that. I tried, as I missed them, but they turned me down, telling me that I'm not part of their family. My mom kept visiting me about once a month, but those slowly were reduced. Last I saw or heard from her was over 6 months ago. My grandmother took good care of me, though. When I was 14, I was feeling completely abandoned and very lonely, so I decided to find out more about my biological father. My mom refused to give me any information, but my grandmother told me who he is. Apparently, she had suspected all those years ago that my mom was having an affair with her boss. He was the son of the owner of a company my mom worked for, and my mom was his assistant. I went to him, told him who my mom is, and said that I might be his daughter. He did a DNA test, and it was positive, and he took me and introduced me to his wife. They accepted me immediately and treated me really well. All that time, he had 2 sons, 2 and 3 years old. They introduced me to the extended family too, and they all accepted me and welcomed me into the family. I was surprised about how well they were treating me. I expected things to be a lot messier. They even gave money to my grandmother, so she has all she needs when I lived with her. So in the next few years, I became closer to them. My biological father, who I started calling Dad, always wanted me around. My half-brothers just grew up to know me as their big sister, so to them, I'm just the big sister. My stepmother was wonderful. Early on, she sat me down and told me that I'm her husband's daughter. That means she will love me like her own child and promised me to never treat me differently than her own sons, and she's been keeping that promise. They took me with them on holidays. They even gave me a room at their house with a set of keys and told me that I'm always welcome to live there with them if I want. I live with my grandmother. I never told my mom about any of it. I asked my grandmother not to tell her either. She agreed, as she was pretty upset about how she treated me. 3 weeks ago, it was my 18th birthday. My dad and stepmother had thrown a party for me, and it was very nice. However, all day I waited for my mom to call me, and she didn't. Late at night after the party, I was in my room at their house and hoping that my mom would still call. She didn't. When midnight passed and the day was officially over, I started crying. My stepmother heard me and came to my room, gave me a big hug, and tried to comfort me. We talked for a long time. I ended up falling asleep in her arms. When I woke up, she was still there, awake, and holding me in her arms. At that time, I asked if it's okay to call her mom from now on. She was surprised. Then tears came. Then she said she wants nothing more in her life. So we cried a little with each other, and then we were excited to tell the rest of the family, who all loved it. 2 days ago, I was with my grandmother and my phone rang. It was my stepmother, who I had changed in my contacts to Mom, and changed my mom to her full name. My grandmother saw that, and after the phone call was done, she asked, "How's my mom?" and I told her that it was my stepmother. She became very upset that I was calling her mom. She told me she's disappointed, and even though my mom hasn't been a good mother, I've crossed the line. She then called my mom, Bio, and was very angry at her for ducking things up so much, and she told her everything. My mom came over that night, and it was like a 3-way argument/fight between us. My mom was very angry that I reached out to that family. She told me they're bad people and doesn't want me involved with them. I said something to her like, "They've been nicer to me than you ever were." We fought for an hour and she left. My grandmother still believed that I crossed a line that I shouldn't have, and I betrayed my mother and her. An hour later, my father, my bio mom's husband, came and asked to talk to me. He told me that he's sorry about how he treated me and he thinks he was unfair and selfish to push me away. He said I reminded him of her infidelity and he couldn't stay if I was around, and he had 2 children too, and he did it for them. I told him that I don't care. Those 2 children abandoned me even though I was still their sister. They were following his lead, and I blame him and my mom. He said he had a big fight with my mom about me, and she blames him for losing me, and he doesn't think they will stay married unless I tell my mom that I forgive both of them. He told me that if I really want them to divorce and live alone, I can do nothing, but I can fix things if I try. So now I'm stuck here. 2 questions. Is my grandmother right? Did I cross a line and betray her? I care about this more than anything else. I love her. She took care of me when I was abandoned by everyone else, and she's always been good to me. So I care about her opinion and want to make everything okay with her. Do I tell my mom that I've forgiven her and her husband and help them patch things up? My husband, Alan, and I have been married for 5 years, and until last month, everything was perfect. We had struggled to conceive for 2 years, and when I found out I was pregnant last year, we were both ecstatic. We were even more ecstatic when we found out we were having fraternal twins, because we wanted 2 children, and we wouldn't have to worry about getting pregnant a second time. I had an incredibly easy pregnancy, and our beautiful daughters were born last August. I am mixed race. My father was half black, half white. My mother was half Korean, half white, and Alan is white. So I was pleasantly surprised when both of our girls were born with blue eyes. The older twin, Abby, has light brown hair and a pale complexion, and the younger twin, Lana, has blonde hair and a more tanned complexion. But both twins look practically identical in terms of face shape and facial expressions. Alan's father is completely colorblind, and he sometimes has problems distinguishing which twin is which when I post photos of the girls on Facebook. That's how much the girls look alike. About a month ago, Alan's older brother, Bevers, 36 male, announced that he was getting a divorce from his wife Melody due to Melody's infidelity. Bevers had discovered that Melody had been cheating on him for years, and a DNA test proved that their son's father was the other man's. Bevers has been staying at our house until his apartment is available for move-in. He has already signed his lease for the 1st of next month. The landlord is replacing the carpet. I want to mention at this point that Bevers is not on Alan's side and has actually been in full support of me and the twins, because Bevers' situation seems to be what triggered Alan. About a week after Bevers came to stay with us, Alan started to become increasingly distant and cold towards me and the twins. He would go into his office and surf Reddit and play video games for hours on end. If I asked him to help me out with the house or with the babies, he would either completely ignore me or mumble a reply and go back to his computer. If I asked if anything was wrong, he would get annoyed and tell me to stop being paranoid. Last Friday, I asked Alan to pick up the girls from daycare because I had to stay late at work. I sent Alan both a text and a Facebook message because we so often switch between the two when we chat at work. Both Alan and I work full-time, but Alan starts work an hour later than I do. We had agreed that Alan would drop the twins off at daycare in the mornings and I would pick them up after work. But we also agreed that this was flexible in case something came up. My phone was on silent because I was in a meeting, and when I checked it after the meeting, I had several voicemails from the daycare staff saying that the twins were still there and hadn't been picked up. The daycare is open until late at night, so the girls were fine, but the staff was a bit worried that something had happened to either myself or Alan. I checked my phone to verify that the text I sent to Alan had gone through, and the read receipt was marked as read. I checked Facebook Messenger to see if he received the message, and it was also marked as read. I picked up the twins from daycare, and when I got back to the house, Alan was sitting in his office playing a video game and listening to music on his phone. I put the girls in their cribs and went back to the office to confront Alan, who was trying his best to ignore me. I stood in front of the TV to block his view of the game, and he just kept on playing like I wasn't even there. I couldn't believe he was ignoring me, so I unplugged the power strip from the wall and unplugged his headphones from his phone and then asked him, "Why are you ignoring me? Why didn't you pick up Abby and Lana from daycare?" Alan then finally reacted to me and said that he wasn't going to do anything to care for the twins or me unless we had a paternity test done to prove that he is the father of both of the babies. He said that he doesn't believe that the babies were his because both babies have blue eyes, and both Alan's and my eyes are brown. Lana has blonde hair, and Alan's hair is brown. He thought that all babies are born with blue eyes, so he wasn't suspicious until it was clear that the baby's eye colors weren't darkening. I was shocked, and I told Alan that both blonde hair and blue eyes are recessive traits, and then drew him a Punnett square to show him how the genetics worked. Alan tore up the piece of paper with the Punnett square on it and threw the paper and the pen at me, screaming that I was trying to lie to him and making up the science, and that I was just trying to cover up my cheating. He was so loud that neither one of us noticed that Bevers had also come home from work and was watching us from the doorway. Bevers had seen Alan throw the pen at me, and he grabbed Alan by the collar and threw him to the ground. Then Bevers told me that he and Alan spoke the night before and that he already had explained to Alan how the genetics work and to get over his insecurities and be a father to the twins. But clearly that message hadn't sunk in. Alan got up and started packing a bag and told both myself and Bevers that he was getting a lawyer and that when the paternity test proves that he isn't the father, that we are both going to regret what we did to him. Alan has been staying at a motel since he left because no one in their family will let him stay with them. They all think that Alan is being irrational and throwing away his marriage for no reason at all. And their dad has already called me and promised that he will pay for my lawyer to defend myself against his own son in court. I'm angry, hurt, and confused by Alan's behavior, and I really don't know which direction to take at this point. Alan's family has taken my side, but I really wish this hadn't been an issue in the first place. Alan and I have never had any fights like this before, and he hasn't ever acted like this in the 10 years I've known him. Bevers has been helping me take care of the twins since Alan left. But I'm worried that I won't be able to afford the daycare on my own, or that I'll have to quit my job, or that Alan will sell the house, or 1,000 other possibilities. I have no idea what to do.